And somehow we fell in love and we had all this great stuff going. And then life gets busier and hairier, and then the kids come into play and they're the priority. Push that aside. Let's go back to the basics. Where are we at? What are we doing well? And how can we improve on some things?
Welcome to More Than a Milspouse, the podcast for military spouses who want to live with more meaning and less overwhelm. I'm your host, Christine, seasoned military spouse, mom of 3, life coach, and your guide to intentionally designing a life you're excited about as a military spouse. I'm here to help you get the clarity you need so you can get unstuck and unlock your purpose and potential. Because you, my friend, are more than a milspouse. You have something valuable to offer. And when you pursue the things that light your heart on fire, you trade frustration for fulfillment and isolation for a life of impact. It's time to discover who you are meant to be, because together we can change the world. Hey friend, I am so glad you are here. I am weeks away from our Packers showing up and launching into our moving season. Next week, I will have an episode talking about what I'm doing with the podcast this summer and how I'm going to keep incredible content coming your way. But today I am really thrilled to bring this episode to you because let's be real, military life puts a lot of pressure on marriage, from the separations and the shifting schedules to the constant moving. It's easy for communication to break down and to feel like you and your partner are drifting apart. So if you've ever had the thought that we're just not on the same page anymore, you're not alone. But the good news is that rebuilding your connection doesn't have to mean hours of counseling or another difficult conversation that doesn't seem to go anywhere. Today, I am joined by Linda Schwefel from Discover Yourself, and we are going to dive into a powerful tool that's helping couples everywhere better understand themselves and each other so that they can communicate more clearly and connect more deeply. We're going to talk about why opposites often attract and how that can become frustrating, how your game face might be wearing you out, and what a simple 5% shift could do for your relationship. And then at the end of the episode, Linda has an incredible free offer just for military couples that will help you start rebuilding your relationship with your spouse. All right, here's my conversation with Linda Schwefel. Today, my guest is Linda Schwefel. She is the managing partner of Discover Yourself, the #1 global provider of insights discovery, an industry-leading personality assessment, and a powerful tool for understanding people. So first off, Linda, welcome to More Than a Milspouse.
Well, thank you so much. It is my absolute pleasure to be here.
I am so excited for our conversation today. I met Linda about a year ago, and the first thing I remember is her telling me how much she loved what she did. And as you guys know, I am all about finding ways to pursue a career that aligns with our passion and our purpose. So I really would love to kick off today by just having you share a little bit about how you stepped into your role and what you love about it.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. So I graduated with a business degree and right out of the gate ended up in the Fortune 500 world for about 15 years. I was in the sales trenches and I did a lot of training and selling for both Xerox and IBM. I had great exposure for all sorts of things, leadership development, sales training, of course. Through the course of that, I was exposed to a lot of different personality profiles, which all were super cool. I learned about myself. It was kind of fascinating. I went home that night. Then the next day it was business as usual. I didn't feel really a change in terms of who I was or what I was bringing to the table. And about 20 some years ago, I'm aging myself here, but my husband actually, who's my business partner, came home and said, "Boy, I went through this thing called Insights Discovery and I'm really interested in your take on it. Would you sit through a session?" So I sat through a session that was a couple hours long and I was fascinated by it. I had gone online, I answered a series of questions, and I got this profile back about who I am, what made me tick. It was about communication styles, what worked, what didn't. And I was blown away, stopped dead in my tracks. And I go, wow, it is so clear to me now why the successes were there, why failures were there, why some relationships worked, why they didn't. It was about communication and style and what worked and what didn't. And so I had just made a decision to hang up my corporate hat. I had 3 little ones at home and I was just gone all the time. So I wanted to spend some time home with my kids. But I was so impacted by the work I'd done that day, I made another commitment. And that was that when I went back to work, this would be the training and the kind of work that I would be doing. So my husband's been involved in doing insights, discovery workshops, and keynotes for probably 25 years. And I got involved. I stepped into the game about 15 years ago. I got certified and trained, and I've been traveling around doing this type of work ever since.
I love it. So let's step back for a little bit, and I'd love for you to just share what Insights Discovery is and how it differs from other types of personality assessments.
Absolutely. Here's what it is. It's really simple. You go online, you answer 25 questions, which takes about 15 minutes. We tell people don't overthink it. You answer those questions, and then you get back a profile that's approximately 20 pages long. It's who are you? What makes you tick? What's your perfect environment to work in? What is your psychological opposite, whether you're living with them or working with them? Maybe some suggestions of what to do when you're living with your psychological opposite or working with or volunteering with. So you get this profile and you just have a lot of aha moments because what it gives you is this really cool sense of self-awareness. And there's a lot of people that are walking around out there that think they know how they show up in the eyes of others, but they really don't. So it gives you really great feedback. And it's the good and the boy, you might want to, you've got some blind spots here, just a little heads up. So it's not all flowers and everything else. It gives you a really comprehensive profile that says, here's who you are and here's how the world sees you and here's how you see yourself. And by the way, there's kind of 2 aspects of our personalities. One is who are we when we just wake up in the morning? It's sort of our natural self. And then the other piece of it is when it's go time, we tend to put on a game face. What's that game face look like? And it might be a game face that you take to work, might be a game face that you bring to the table as a mom or as a volunteer or as a coach, but what's that game face look like? And so what we do is we help people understand as they shift out of that natural self and put on a game face to get the job done. And that shift isn't a bad thing, but it can often be really tiring. So we help people understand, boy, as you move out of that natural self and put on that different game face, you might be exhausted as a result of that change. What we find is in terms of the difference between ours and the other assessments that are out there, it's more applicable. It's just sticky and it's easy. And so what we do is we teach a 4-color model. We don't box people in. We don't pigeonhole you. At the end of it all, you're not a blue person. I'm not a red person. It's not like that. It's just we teach you a shortcut to understand personalities and people just a little bit more easily. The reason we do that is in hopes that you can lean into the styles of other people. Because what we teach in our training is you all have these brilliant gifts that you bring, right? But what we want you to be a little bit more conscious of is thinking about the gifts of others too, and what can you do to lean in so that you can have the connection with the people that you're working with or living with so that you have the best possible relationship that you can have.
I love this, especially when it talks about our natural self versus our game face, because as military spouses, we are moving around a lot. And sometimes it feels like each time we move, there's a new game face to put on. Like, what do I need to be in this environment for this season? And so much so that sometimes we lose sight of who we are as people because we're so focused on who we need to be for everyone else around us. So I know this tool is used in corporate environments a lot, but talk about how we can use this both for ourselves and for those we're in relationship with.
So the bottom line, this is what we're striving for, is this balance, so that you can try to bring a little bit more of yourself into play in day to day, so you're a little less tired. At the same time, what we really teach is conscious, intentional interaction with people. So whether you're moving to a new base and you're meeting people, sort of learning how to recognize the different styles and the personalities of other people, so you can lean into their style and have the connection that you want to be. Still staying genuine in terms of who you are. But if you realize that somebody's maybe a little bit more to themselves, right, or a little quieter, instead of just jumping in front of them, that verbal what's going on, which they'll retreat and they'll just get uncomfortable. But if you recognize maybe they're a little more introverted, just stepping back and acknowledging that and saying, I might give them a second, and then maybe walk back up and approach them and say, how you doing? Care to chat about where you came from or what your story looks like? Like, give them permission to kind of retreat if they need to, or have that conversation if they'd like to. In terms of people you meet, we want you to think about what you can do, and in terms of your everyday life. So what happens with most of us is we all get pretty comfortable, right? We meet somebody and we lean into their style because we want to make it work. And oftentimes, by the way, we meet somebody and they tend to be our psychological opposite. As a matter of fact, 50% of the world ends up marrying their psychological opposite. And it's great because it's exciting and you have to kind of flex and learn, and they're everything you're not, and vice versa. And then after a while, you just get irritated by those differences. Well, what happens is at the front end, you leaned in, you thought it was pretty cool. And then life happens, right? And we start to get we get a little lazy and we sit back and we just allow our natural self to just be good enough. And the bottom line is, for every relationship that matters, it requires lean in every day. The good news is, what we teach, whether we're working with people on a corporate level or we're doing spouse retreats with the military or CEO retreats, we say it only requires a 5% lean in. So we're not asking you to even go 50% of the way. We're saying 5% if you can remind yourself of the cool style that they have and give them a little bit more of what they need. They'll see it, they'll feel it, they'll appreciate it, and the walls kind of come down, and oftentimes then there's less conflict.
I think this is so important because so many of us in this military lifestyle, we try to have good relationships with our spouse or significant other, but there's so many other demands on life and so many things that pull us away, and whether it's deployment or whether it's long hours and strange shifts or any number of things, there are so many outside pressures that are pulling us apart. And so to have tools that can help us intentionally grow our relationship is so important, and something that probably does not get enough attention. So maybe let's start by just would you give us a kind of overview of each of the 4 color energies?
Absolutely. I do want to say hats off to all the military spouses. You guys have the toughest job around. You really do. I think about what you have to go through and all the hats you have to wear as your spouse is either deployed or you're moving around. It's a tough deal. And my husband Scott and I we've done a ton of work with the military. I mean, just last week he was out in Portland with the 116th Air Guard Squadron, and I've had 700 National Guard that just came back. They returned home, and we took them and their spouses through this. And what we learned is, if anybody has the toughest gig, it's you guys in the military. Communication is hard in marriage anyways. I mean, it is the greatest gift to marriage in the world, and it's difficult, right? So you add all those other hard components on to marriage with what you guys are dealing with, and you all do a remarkable job. I can't applaud you enough for the great work you're doing. If you can have or add tools into your tool belt, right, it does make it easier. So here's what we do with the work. So we teach a 4-color model of personalities. So here's the 4 colors and kind of how they show up. So fiery red, that's an extroverted, go, 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 make things done kind of personality style. You lead the charge, you're quick, you're call to action kind of people. Followed by sunshine yellow energy. You're the life of the party, right? You're the visionaries. You enjoy the journey. Everything in your head comes out your mouth unfiltered, but you're a great multitasker. keep lots of balls in the air and do it really well. That's extroverted energy. And then we've got the introverted energy that sits in what we call earth green. That's where the kind, patient, caring personality comes into play. So you're all about helping others. You're our best listeners. You're the one with absolute unconditional love, right? Kind, patient, and caring. And then finally, our cool blue. People that lead with cool blue energy, you find attention to detail. You're about making sure T's are crossed, I's are dotted, very reflective, right? Measurement, process, all that kind of stuff is really important. And the truth is, you'd rather be right than liked. So that's just an important aspect of your personality. There's a psychological opposite component to this too. So fiery red, go, right? Go, move, draw to action. Your psychological opposite sits in earth green, which is harmony, right? Trust, collaboration. Yellow energy, again, life of the party, have fun, visionary. Your psychological opposite sits in cool blue, which is make sure the details and the accuracy is there. There tends to be the most conflict in relationships when you are with a psychological opposite. Well, it stands to reason, right? Because the two of you literally look at the world 180 degrees differently. However, there's a brilliance in those two personalities coming together when you lean in, because what it forces you to do is stretch a little and see the world just a little bit differently. And by the way, that's when we all experience growth, which is a really important thing, because we don't want to just sit back and get comfortable in who we are and it's kind of our way or the highway. We want that growth, we want that stretch, and when we're with our psychological opposites, we get that more than ever. It also, though, can bring on some challenges as a result of that. So that's when that lean in component is so incredibly important. Again, just 5%, but making sure if you're somebody that's sunshine yellow, like let's plan a vacation, woohoo, let's get on the plane and just go, versus your spouse, which is whoa, 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 whoa. We need an agenda, we need a budget. Let's map out every single day and have our schedule. Those are two very different ways of planning a vacation, right? And to most people, you'd say, how fun, this shouldn't be an easy thing. And yet people can get really sideways planning a vacation just because their style, their personality comes into play. So it's really important to have that awareness about the different wiring of people that are in our lives, especially our spouses and our kids. Comes into play with our kids as well.
So talk about a parent-child relationship, because if you and your spouse may be opposite, how does that play into what your children become?
So it's interesting. Most of us as parents try to motivate our kids the way we want to be motivated. And it's like hitting a brick wall. You like, why isn't Johnny listening? I can't believe that they're not driven to a call to action, blah, blah, blah. Because that's who I am as a person. But what if Johnny's my psychological opposite? And all Johnny wants to hear is, how you doing today, Johnny? And then be quiet. Right? And let Johnny just process. Whereas I'm what's called fiery red, which means I want to fix everything and call to action as a parent. Let's go, 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 move, 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 right? And just make things happen. If I'm interacting with one of my kids and they're a psychological opposite, like I had one of my kids many, many moons come home in tears, whatever else, and something happened, and I wanted to get on the phone and call, blah, 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 blah. And my child looked at me with a quivering lip and said, don't make any calls, I just need a hug. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm mommy dearest, right? How did I miss that? But what I think my child needs is what I believe I need. So the key is, as a parent, is really paying attention to how is my child motivated? Because I need to motivate my child that way. I mean, we used to kind of joke that, our kids are long gone, but after school conferences, we'd come home and we'd go into our daughter's room. Kenzie, she's yellow energy. They love you. You're enjoying the journey. You're including everybody. But can you just zip your lips from time to time, right? Just a little less chatter. That's all Kenzie needed. Really different conversation with our son. We'd go down the hall, knock, knock, knock. Hey, Connor, just came from conferences. When you're ready to talk about school, come on downstairs. Let's have a conversation. He's cool blue, so he needed time to process. Actually, he needed time for excuses, but that's a whole other story. But we needed to give him that space, right? Otherwise, it would have been a train wreck. And then our daughter, Scotty, fiery red like her mother. Give her the information and get out of her way. So we're still being true to who we are, but that slight lean in with our kids was the difference between really great conversations and what could have fallen apart pretty quickly.
So how did you go about starting to identify these are the characteristics I see in my kids and how do I support them in that?
It's really interesting because you can see personality characteristics right out of the gate. I mean, sit back and maybe if there's a daycare center, just quietly observe and watch. You'll see, Sally, she's just the mayor and she's making sure everybody's okay and somebody fell and she's helping them up. And maybe somebody else is sitting in the corner just to themselves, quietly playing with blocks or Legos or whatever. They don't need interaction from others. They're just so if you just look at a very young age, you can start to see the different personalities that show up in our kids. The key is you just have to pay attention, right? We make a lot of assumptions, and don't make assumptions. Sit back and just observe. The easiest thing to watch for is an introvert versus an extrovert. In our model, an introvert sits in that blue and that green energy, an extrovert sits in that red and the yellow energy. So are they engaging in people? Or are they better off just kind of quietly being on their own? That's the easiest way to figure out introversion, extroversion versus red and yellow or blue and green.
Excellent. Yeah, because you can see different personalities. I have 3 kids, and so, my middle child is a friend to everybody within 5 minutes, and she is the best caretaker that you will ever meet. And then my oldest sometimes would rather just be with a book in the corner and can have the best day of her life. So let's talk about when it comes to us and our spouse and this idea that we're recognizing we may be different, that we need to come together. How do we get started broaching that subject with our spouse? If one of us is really interested in okay, let's talk about this, let's improve this, and the other one may not be as open to this idea, how do we start to bring about that conversation?
So here's the thing. Even the strongest marriages require intention and effort. And oftentimes what we find is sometimes people feel like, a spouse might feel like they're being threatened or they're not doing a good job. So they're less apt to want to participate in this. And we see this all the time because Scott and I during COVID, our business, as you can imagine, we're speakers. We're in front of people all the time. We folded up like a camp kit very quickly. And so what we did is we reached out to churches when the world was shut down and we said, hey, we want to start working with couples. And we had them go online. We had them take their assessment. And there were times when we had 100 couples online. And to your point, it was really interesting. The cameras were on and whatever else. And we had just this amazing dialogue with a lot of couples. And oftentimes you could see one spouse was way into this and the other one was arms folded, so disinterested. So the first thing to do is just say, I want this marriage to be the best it can be. Are we both committed to that? Right? And make it not a threatening situation. Now we have access to, we spend 15 minutes, we go online, we take this assessment. Now we have this information that just comes back and says, here's who you are. Here's who your spouse is. Bring in a little self-awareness, read about yourself and go, oh yeah, interesting. Then you share profiles with one another. Be reminded on maybe a deeper level who your spouse is, right? Because you'll learn some things, even though my husband and I have been married 36 years tomorrow. And yet there's still some things that you go, oh, I kind of forgot about that. That's important to him, or that's an aspect of his wiring. Sometimes I forget to pay attention to. So we read each other's profiles. And I believe the most valuable tool in the profile is when you sit down and literally there's 2 pages in there. One chapter says effective communication with Linda. That's me, right? And then barriers to communication with Linda. What sends up my firewall? Then Scott has the same thing and we exchange it. And we literally would identify the top 1 or 2 things that were important to us and the top 1 or 2 things that, boy, my hair really stood on end when he would say or do this. We actually pinned it on our refrigerator because we started to notice, for whatever reason, we got sideways in the kitchen a lot. Why did we argue in the kitchen? I have no idea, but we argued in the kitchen. So it was a reminder that said, hey, you're taking control of this conversation, and I'm really bothered by that, and I'm going to shut down if you keep doing it. So that reminder, so then he could say, okay, you're right, here, you take over, you're at the reins, and so on and so forth. And oftentimes we'd end up kind of laughing about it in the end, right? It just moved us to a place where it was just safe and okay, and we laughed about it. We were able to talk about it and move on. But what happens a lot of times is it escalates. It gets worse and worse and worse. Somebody shuts down and then just marches off, and we don't really resolve it. And I don't say that in judgment, because after 36 years, it happens to us sometimes too. My husband and I were on a walk this morning, and we got sideways about something. And the bottom line is, it wasn't the issue, it was who had control of the issue. So if you can remember to stop and go, okay, what's really going on here? And the beauty of the profile is it simplifies it and allows you to go, oh, this is why I'm coming a little undone. This takes me back to a place, maybe my childhood, maybe something, and it brings it to a comfortable place where you can discuss it and just work through it.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes we get to this place where like something's off, but we're not quite sure what it is or how to go about coming to a resolution in a healthy manner. So we just kind of bury it down until eventually somebody explodes, right?
Absolutely.
So what are some of these strategies that we can use to have a healthy dialogue once we begin to see our differences?
So the first thing that I would say, it's interesting. In most of our work, right, we do these, a lot of people call it one-on-ones. Or in the military, I'm sure they've got their checklist of where we at, what have we accomplished, and whatever else. And for whatever reason in our marriages, we just float from day to day, right? We don't do those check-ins. So whether it's once a month, once a week, whenever you can get your spouse, 10 minutes is all it takes to sit down and say, how are we doing? If they're detailed, if they're cool blue, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are we at? What do you like? What do you want to change? Make it easy to do those check-ins. My mother-in-law passed away back in November, but she was a therapist. And I remember right when we first got married, she said, Linda, you get busier and busier with work and with children and whatever else, and you forget to keep one another important. So the best advice she gave us is, she said, try to do it once a week. It's hard to do. Shoot for once a month. Go out to dinner, grab a cup of coffee, have a glass of wine, whatever works for you. Talk about everything and anything, but it can't be your children. It can't be money. And it can't be specifics within your jobs. Because when you were courting each other, none of those three pieces existed, right? And somehow we fell in love and we had all this great stuff going. And then life gets busier and hairier, and then the kids come into play and they're the priority. Push that aside and go, let's go back to the basics. Where are we at? What are we doing well? And how can we improve on some things? And what I love about the profile is it gives you a really simple outline. So it makes it easy for you to say, hey, what's our value? What's your value to the marriage? What's my value to the marriage? Like, what are the great things that we see in one another that highlights the good parts of this family? Or, boy, what's a blind spot? One of us might want to say, hey, there's an opportunity for some growth here. We could both work on this. Maybe call me out when I do this, because it's a blind spot. And sometimes I forget I go there. So the reason I love this profile, and I'm not trying to kind of push it, but I just would love to get it in people's hands, because it becomes this, it's who you are, what makes you tick, and how you want to be treated. How fantastic if we could just pass that to our spouse, right? To our loved ones and say, this is me, right? Let's think about a way that we can lean in and be reminded of, this is the kind of thing that I need so that I'm functioning at my best level as a spouse.
I think it's so valuable to hear because, I know for me going into marriage, I heard the message that, if you want a healthy marriage, that you got to invest the time into growing a healthy marriage. And then you step into military life. You step into, oh, my spouse is deployed for months on end, or they're gone on every anniversary and every holiday. And it's so easy to kind of let that slide to the back and just let life happen. And we still have a long ways to go, but even our commitment a few years ago was like at least once a quarter, we're going to sit down and have a conversation. And that's been so helpful, because otherwise it's still so easy to let it slide. And so we have the reminder on our phones that pops up every quarter. Time to have that conversation. So yes, we want to do it regularly, but sometimes that's hard. But the more that we can do it, anything is better than doing nothing.
Absolutely. I think we chatted about that when we met. And I remember thinking, I was so impressed by that. And here's the thing about marriage is like, it's all those little choices that we make, right? That maybe don't feel like a lot, but all of a sudden you wake up and you go, I'm 7 years in. How did we get so far apart? And people say all the time, well, we just grew apart. Without judgment, I hate to say it, you just intentionally decided not to make the effort to grow together. It is conscious, intentional interaction. What you're doing is really important, even if it's once a month, because once a month is a heck of a lot more than a lot of people are doing. That effort, even if it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes once a month, will make all the difference in the world. I promise you, if you continue doing that check-in, what's working, what isn't, what do you need from me, what can I improve upon, please do this, please stop doing this. Some really simple things, jot them down and just promise each other you're going to do the best job you can to stay true to that.
I think that's so helpful because it's something that most of us can carve out 10 minutes in a month. When we can be intentional with that, it's like any relationship. If you want to have a strong relationship, if you want to be known by the other person, you can't just not talk except about work or kids or anything else. And so I think that's really something that we need to hear more of. So thank you for bringing that up. I would love if you have a story or an example of how this has improved a marriage.
So what's interesting about it is it's not the big answer to everything. It's the little ways that you respond to things, that one of those things on top of the other that can escalate and make couples frustrated with one another. So I'm so transparent and I'm so happy to share examples of, even though we've been married 36 years and we do this training, we live, eat, and breathe it. And we both have very strong personalities. So we fall apart too from time to time. So here's what seems like a very silly example, but honestly, we've gotten out of sorts about. So Scott and I get into the car. Now I'm fiery red. Go, 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 get it done, right? He's yellow energy. So he just wants to enjoy the journey. So every time we get into the car, I have already decided the fastest way to get to where we're going. Well, Scott doesn't give it any thought. So he just starts driving. I mean, he wanders. And I'm thinking to myself, we're going in circles here, and it doesn't matter to him at all, because to him it's like boop, 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 boop. We're going to see a neighbor, we're going to wave, we're going to... And in my head, I'm like, that just added 10 minutes, because I'm called to action, right? So I'm bubbling up in the passenger seat while he's just enjoying the journey and waving to the world. So it's a little thing, but again, frustration for me, right? Then the light turns green and I yell, go, 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 go. And he looks at me like, whoa, I know I need to hit the accelerator, but his call to action isn't fast enough. So I always remind him. And then he's irritated because I'm yelling, go, 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 go. Again, the simplest, silliest thing. But yet we can kind of come undone about that stuff. So the reminder that every time I get in the car, I know he's going to go the long way. The reminder that he knows that every time we get it, I'm going to probably yell go, even though I know it's going to irritate him. Because the thing is with people, it's the little stuff that tends to get under our skin about them. It's rarely that big elephant sitting in the room. It's the little stuff. So I just, another super funny example about in a car, I'll just hit the controls with the temperature, right? I don't want the air, I want blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't understand why I don't just hit auto 70 degrees. And the bottom line is we're coming undone about something. It's really not about the temperature, is it, in the car? It's about who's controlling the temperature in the car. So really this is about a reminder of being flexible with one another. Remind yourself every single day that we're all wired differently, right? Including your spouse. And especially if you're like 50% of the world that fell in love when married somebody who is your psychological opposite, that's what drew you into them out of the gate, right? Now, after all those years, it becomes the biggest source of irritation, right? When way back when it was, he completes me, she makes me whole, and 7 years in, you want to kill him, right? So that reminder, take a breath and go. It's how they're wired. Don't take their style so personally. You won't be so offended by it. You maybe don't feel like you're getting run over by your spouse. Just who they are. Just remind yourself of that.
I mean, I have to say, you guys are an amazing example because 36 years of marriage, there's not a whole lot of couples that could actually work together because they're like, I could be married to this person, but I could never do business with them. So that's like a whole nother level of learning to work together, both at home and at work.
Definitely. And trust me when I say we know the lanes we need to be in. I am a speaker. I show up, I do my thing, and I am not allowed to get my hands into anything. I mean, we always joke. So Scott's obviously a speaker too. He runs the business. He manages everybody. We always joke that if I managed our business, everybody would quit, right? Because I'm just fiery red, get it done. My expectations are up here, and I don't have patience to train and to teach like he does. He's just better at that. So we've established our lane, and I stay in mine, he stays in his. And it's really been great because what is cool about it is we do have this common thing that we can talk about, and it's exciting for us, right? And we still feel that sense of purpose. And we love when we go into companies and we know we're changing lives. We know we are. And our favorite part about it is not so much when somebody from a company says, boy, our team has never been better. But we oftentimes get notes or emails that say, boy, I can't thank you enough. I am now looking at my son entirely differently. Or I now look into the eyes of my wife and I see her in a whole different light. And that's what keeps us getting out of bed every day. I mean, at some point there, we're going to just be the old people that they don't want to listen to anymore. Until that day comes, we're going to keep talking because it's so cool to see how it changes lives. It's so awesome because it's so easy and sticky. And with what doesn't feel like a whole lot of effort, it's transformational in people's lives, professionally and personally.
And that's so powerful to have that thing that gives you that sense of purpose and allows you to get out of bed and say, hey, today I get to change someone's life.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of different there's other profiles or whatever assessments that are out there, and some are better than others. Some are more personal in terms of who do you want to be, what's your legacy as you live your life, and so on and so forth. What's different about this one versus other ones is this just helps with communication and style. And again, it helps you appreciate the different personalities that are out there. It helps you in a very easy manner figure out how to lean into the different styles of people that are in your lives. So it's just a little bit more usable.
I love that. And one of the things I am most excited about today is that you have a special offer for our spouses listening.
Yes, we do. It would be our absolute pleasure if you would like to receive your own personality assessment and your spouse. I will give you the link and then a referral code that you'll need, and we'll follow up with an email to make sure that you have that. So it's dymarketingprofile.com. So dymarketingprofile.com, and then it will prompt you for a referral code so you don't get billed for it. And that referral code is MILSPOUSE with a backslash and then 51225. Again, it's MILSPOUSE, a backslash and 51225. I would really encourage you to do it. Go online. Start with yourself. Get it done. Let your spouse know that you completed it. Share it, and don't look at it and go, see, here's why, right? It's not about that. It's about saying, hey, here's how I'm wired. Just a reminder, I'd sure love if you would do this too. And then sit down and again, like you guys do, 10 minutes once a month, read each other's, talk about ways you can lean in, talk about what works really well and where are those maybe areas of improvement you might want to start thinking about. So it makes it easy, it makes it sticky, it makes it applicable. And what you'll see is hopefully, a difference literally overnight.
I love it. Thank you so much. This was so generous of you to give this to our community. And I really think it's going to make such a difference in someone's life. As we wrap up today, if there was one simple takeaway from this model that listeners could use to strengthen their relationship, what would that be?
So I would say meet your partner where they are, not where you wish they were. I would also say that what people do and say, it's based upon their own experiences in life, right? So experiences are formed by taking every single thing that's happened to us. We add it together. They become our lenses with which we see the world, right? And yet we come together as spouses or as a team, as a group, and we expect everybody to see a situation the same way. They won't. Their lenses are so vastly different. So I'd say remind yourself that they're seeing the world through their own set of lenses. Don't take things quite so seriously. Make sure you're reminding yourself there's different personality and styles that are out there. You'll be a whole lot less offended by the way that people react and show up in your world if you can do that. Just embrace the good stuff and remind yourself we're all different.
We are all different. We all have different experiences that have influenced how we show up and how we see the world. And sometimes we just need that little help, a little support to help see through someone else's eyes and see how they may view things a little bit differently. And when we have those tools that can help us communicate better with each other, then we can have stronger relationships. So Linda, thank you for coming on today. Thank you for being a part of this show.
You are so welcome. Thank you. Thank you for everything you do. And for anybody who's listening, my goodness, you're incredible human beings, and God bless everybody.
Oh my goodness, I hope this conversation left you feeling a little more confident and empowered and believing that improving your marriage is possible. And it doesn't necessarily require a lot of time and money. So much of relationships comes down to communication. And the more that we understand ourselves and our partner, the better we are able to communicate. The Discovery Insights profile gives you the language, the lens, and the permission to show up more authentically and to meet your partner where they are, as Linda said, where they are, not where you wish they were. And as Linda put it so beautifully, all relationships need intentionality to be healthy. So let this be your invitation to gain awareness, to check in, and to reconnect both with your spouse and with yourself. Don't forget, Linda and her team are generously offering a free personality assessment for this community. You can find the link and the referral code in the show notes. But I encourage you to take 15 minutes to start a conversation that could shift everything, because you deserve a healthy, life-giving relationship even in the midst of military life. I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode and how the assessment helps you. Feel free to send me a DM or post in our free Facebook community. Until next time, may you live filled, fueled, and full of joy. Hey, Amazing Milspouse, before you go, I want you to know that I love hearing from you. The More Than a Milspouse community exists to help you thrive as a military spouse. Figure out what lights your heart on fire and empower you to live with purpose and impact. You can have an incredible impact simply by heading over to iTunes to subscribe and leave a review. But your impact doesn't stop there. You can empower those around you simply by sharing an episode with a friend or neighbor, someone who needs a little encouragement in this military life. And if this episode was meaningful to you, spread the love by taking a screenshot of this episode and tagging me on Instagram so we can continue to reach more people, change more lives, and shift the way that military spouses look at life. Because we are better together, and together we can change the world. Let's do it.